Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, Chocolate Saiyan, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hello. Yo, good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you all. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
You mean the horizon being Earth curve in the globe model?
Yeah, the one that they think rotates and then causes an obstruction at that physical limitation of the sun when Earth turns at 15 degrees an hour.
Nah, no proof for that.
No one's ever claimed that the horizon's the Earth curve, except for all the people that claim the horizon's the Earth curve.
It's the refracted curved straight line that you need to occur.
Come again?
That was brilliant. Say it again.
It's the refracted curved straight line that you need to a curve.
A refracted curved straight line that you need to a curve? There's a lot of contradictions in that one statement.
If you think about it, it sounds stupid, but if you just say it, then...
Okay, well, let's see how it stacks up against the next housekeeping question. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
I did say the word straight in it.
Elevation from a curve. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, an angle's two straight lines.
Curves, they don't have elevations. Yeah, but curves, they don't have elevations, they have depressions.
Yes, that's right.
Flatten the...
Go on, Deck. Go.
Just say you'd have to flatten the curve first in order to get the angle.
Or is it you have to curve out the flat?
That's certainly what Al-Biruni did.
Interesting.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Well, hang on.
Oh, elevation angle still on you. Oh, why is it with you an elevation angle measurements, 8/10? Bloody hell.
No, Jorge made a good point. When you're going to do depression angle, where is the straight line? That's your eye line. That's the reference point you got to have for a depression angle. When you're going to do an elevation angle, where's that straight line got to be? Well, it can be at your eye line, like a sensible horizon or astronomical horizon, or a bubble sextant with the bubble. But it also is the surface has to be flat as well. Can't be curved.
So what about the distance to the sun?
Yeah.
We don't know the distance to the sun. We just know it's a light in the sky.
Hello.
But you've just gone out of your way to tell me about elevation angles. Hey, Arwin. Elevation, right? That's height.
Yeah, we can establish the elevation to the GP of the sun.
What's the elevation of the sun then?
To it.
What's the elevation? That's just synonymous with height, though, isn't it? Or distance.
Yeah,
height
but
would be its distance.
elevation to the 90 degree.
Elevation to the 90 degree?
Yes.
No,
you're measuring
right.
to the 90 degree of the GP. It's an elevation to it, not to the sun itself, but to that zenith line, the imaginary line where the sun is right above your head.
Well,
Yeah, but you're measuring
are
to
you
it.
saying
It's
this in
not...
the context
hold
of?
on. When you're measuring to it, you're getting an elevation angle to it, and it's not at your GP. It's not above you when you're measuring that. So you're just measuring its elevation. That's height. So distance to the sun should be acquirable, right? What am I missing?
Well, are you saying in the context of celestial navigation, they're just looking for the angular relationship to the surface? They're not doing it. They even say they don't do it for elevation. So
it's elevation angle.
If I'm doing elevation angles, I know what Nathan wants to get. If you're doing elevation angles and using the celestial bodies for celestial navigation, I need to assume everything is local.
Yeah, but you still haven't given me
if you're
the elevation.
If you're using the sun, yeah, it's a local sun. Yeah.
Tenth almost saved you, but you stepped on him.
Local.
So I'm still not clear. Although Tenth did basically just make it clear why I'm wrong. Surely we can get an elevation from this elevation angle, right? The two are the same thing, aren't they? Elevation means height, doesn't it?
No, you can't, because when you raise an altitude, that angle doesn't change.
Oh, well, that's one problem.
There is no way you can confirm that elevation angle.
I would have saved that for the end. That's my sarcastic attempt to teach aside. What John has just said is the most beautiful aspect, one of the most beautiful aspects of our world. Truly majestic. I don't want to downplay it, so I'd rather relinquish all attempts to make this into a teaching point for John's point, which is far more interesting. And I don't know, I've got goosebumps just before he's even going to start talking about this. Could you just say the point again, John, and then we'll go from there?
Right, as you rise in altitude, the angle does not change to that celestial body.
As you rise in elevation, the angle, that would be the elevation angle measurement that you're taking with the sextant from a flat baseline, not from a curve, not to a curve, that doesn't change to the stars. Is that correct, John? Wow. That's amazing.
It would seem that the stars snub their nose at what our concepts of 3D reality.
But if you had a lighthouse that was a 100-foot lighthouse and you were on the ground about, I don't know, let's say a quarter of a mile away from it, and you measured an elevation angle to the light, if you rose up, right, just things do that naturally, right? As you rise up, the angle to the lighthouse is also going to rise up with you, right?
Yeah, it'll change based on your height.
No, not change. Yeah. The angle will stay the same, like the stars stay the same, right? All lights do that, don't they?
Nope.
The angle to the lighthouse. So that's terrestrial. No, no.
Yes, I'll just self-correct. I'm not wrong. I'm just trying to lead you, and you haven't been, so I'll just do it anyway. So when you measure an angle to the lighthouse, as you raise, the angle decreases. When you raise towards the stars, it stays the same. There's a very distinct difference between measuring an angle to a lighthouse in the distance, just another light in the sky as far as you're concerned if it's dark, but as you raise and measure that angle to the lighthouse, the angle decreases. As you raise and measure the angle to the stars, it's the same angle at all elevations. Now, what does that imply?
Sky is crazy.
Sky's pretty amazing. Yeah, that's the first thing for sure. I think I covered that though. My awe for the sky in that respect is not to be downplayed. What an amazing world we live in. But that aside, what else does it imply? Or not imply?
Well, I think it implies that the stars aren't obeying what we understand of geometry.
Right. In terms of their physicality and the physical assumption bias that people sometimes impose upon them, they're not behaving in that way at all. Right. Good point. Anything else you can infer or not infer or debunk?
Well, you need a flat plane for both terrestrial and celestial.
Yeah, I was going to say that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. You are going to need a flat baseline to measure an angle to a lighthouse or a star. But they're both being done on flat planes, and they're both done frequently and used for navigation. So yeah, it's both requiring flat planes.
Yeah, but the point is, as you are moving in different elevation, you yourself to the. You need to establish as you move in elevation. You need to have a different angle. And in every single one of them, it requires a flat plane.
Yes. But because they don't change angle, you can measure it and then draw out a sensible horizon from your position, or an artificial horizon with a bubble, or whatever you want to use to create a flat plane and a parallel to it at your position in elevation. Drawing out a flat line that's parallel with the ground and then measuring the same angle at that height means that when you do the exact same process and just draw out a circle of equal elevation at your height, it's parallel with the ground. Therefore, the GP of the star, the position you're really concerned with, is still below where you measure it in the air. You've got a plane in the air and you've got a plane that it's parallel with on the ground. That's the ground, by the way, flat. A plane. Has to be, otherwise this doesn't work, and it's still used to this day on aeroplanes. They still carry sextants. Just in case their navigation fails, they can sight stars, triangulate their position, and work out where the hell they are, hopefully avoiding death.
Yeah, because the astrolabe, for example, you would hold it on the piece of string, giving you your plumb and your zenith. Yeah, so when you were doing these triangulation, you were also your position was called your zenith. It's only later on that they abandoned that because you didn't need it to establish that angle anymore with the sextant.
Right.
Well, let me add to that, if I may. The astrolabe or plumb type of instrument would be used at sea, because then you don't have to do the elevation angle, because you would have your zenith with the plumb. But because the boat is rocking, they needed something else to work at sea. So that's when the sextant came in, because the navigator could hold it in his hand and mimic the motion he was going in and bring the sun down to the horizon to get the elevation angle first, and made it a two-step process rather than one-step process with the astrolabe.
Indeed. And regardless of which tool you're using, your acquisition is parallel zeniths. In other words, the zenith at your position, if that's how your tool works, is going to line up or be parallel with the zenith of the star that you're measuring and its ground position that you really want the 90 degree to. Now, if you minus from 90 because you've got a parallel to that, then that's only useful to our opponents to avoid talking about the baseline in that square. That would be the roof of the square, the angle to the star in the sky, which doesn't change with elevation, and then a line parallel with that sky. That's the ground, regardless of your elevation. Now, if that's not actually on the ground, then the line that you draw out with a sensible horizon is still parallel to the ground, so the GP's in the same exact position, geographically speaking. So you're still going to need parallel zenith, which is to say that the box has 4 90 degrees in it. One of them's at the GP of the star, one of them's where you are. And it doesn't really matter which tool. The only reason, like I say, our opponents like to talk about that is so that they can avoid talking about the flat baseline that also needs.
I don't know if it needs 4 squares, but that's a claim of geometry to the sky. I don't.
When you minus it from 90, along the process, it's essentially you are drawing out a full square because you're minusing it from 90 once you've got that elevation angle.
That's from the ground.
Correct. It's called the opposite, isn't it? The side opposed to you.
Yeah, but that's just an angle from the ground. That doesn't tell you anything about the shape of the sky.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
no.
it's not for that.
No. I'm not implying
It's giving you 2 90 degrees, yours and the GP.
Correct. But I'm not implying that means that the sky is flat, because it immediately is violated by the first point and its majesty in regards to going up higher and this box just remaining a box. Does that mean that you've pushed the sky higher? No, definitely not, but the geometry still works. How amazing are those stars is my response to that, rather than, oh, well, we know how high the sky is.
When you use a bubble sextant in an airplane at 30,000 feet, the reference line is the bubble. So you got your flat baseline there. When you use a bubble sextant on the ground, let's say on land, the reference ground is, say, 6 feet above the ground, which is where your eye is. When you use the when you use the sextant at sea, you're referencing the horizon. You do dip correction, so now you're using the sea surface. Those are all parallel. All three are flat baselines parallel one to another. And the GP of the star works at the airplane height of 30,000, the 6-foot height at the eye level of the observer on ground, and also when you do dip correction, get it to eyeballs on sea surface from the surface of the ocean. It's not saying the shape of the sky.
Right, but Earth
Right,
must
you're measuring
be
arc
flat.
minutes.
But Earth must be flat for this to work.
But yeah, nobody's going to argue
That's
that.
correct.
Wow, there's already 70 people watching.
What do you mean nobody's going to argue that? That's all they've been doing.
No, nobody's going to argue against that, is what he said.
But they are.
Yeah, I know.
Are
but,
they?
Go ahead, John. That's a good point. This is a good point you've raised a few times. Go ahead.
Are they really arguing that point? Can you point me to the argument to that point?
Well, Zanuck said we first measure flat and then we do some math. And
But that's not arguing with it. That's agreeing with it.
I'm saying the way they say it. I'm not saying they're right. That's their brain damage.
But their way of arguing with it is to agree with it.
Who put a horizontal plane on top of a ball, making it look like a dingleberry? Who was that did that again?
The ballers.
Right. Why would they need that horizontal plane on top of that ball, looking like a dingleberry?
Get an
An elevation angle.
Oh.
They also think if you draw a circle, you have a sphere.
So the ball underneath is just absolutely useless. Just decoration, like a Christmas tree.
It's not even redundant.
That's
It's not in any way useful. Correct.
It does contradict the celestial sphere model, though.
So it's detrimental. The ball is just detrimental to celestial navigation then.
Yeah, exactly. They either have to cut the dingleberry in half and use the equatorial plane, which is a flat disk.
Yeah, that is the celestial sphere model.
No, I know.
I would go further than that.
No matter what
I would go to say that they cannot do navigation, full stop, without the flat Earth.
That's right.
There you go.
That's spot on. So John's point, just to come back to it, is to say there is no argument. So when you say, well, they say, yeah, we've got to measure a flat plane first, but then we go on to assume that the Earth's a sphere and that the sphere surface is in violation of that angle that we now accept that we have to measure because it's got to be two straight lines. It's an angle. Well, that isn't actually arguing with it. I'll just say it one more time. That's agreeing with it. So John's point stands.
Well,
no, John's point.
Just by mentioning lines of longitude and latitude, just by mentioning that lines of longitude and latitude, it's already referring to a flat plane.
Yes, you can.
Any GP position in the almanac is driven from a flat plane.
Yeah, my assessment of what John said doesn't change. He's absolutely right. I'm not saying they have a real argument. I'm saying they just argue against it.
What's that called?
While arguing for it.
Brain damage?
But if you concede to something that you then go on to argue, it's like the guy the other day, the pilot, when he's like, okay, for the sake of argument, let's just concede that then. There is no Earth curve. But now let's move on to arguing about Earth's sphere. You're like, no, once you concede there's no Earth curve, that's it. That's the end of the argument. Well, you're saying, well, no, but they'll still argue. Well, that's insanity, isn't it? Isn't that just madness?
Well, that's my point. I'm trying to point the insanity out as they argue against what they already conceded to.
Oh, that was like that guy that came in that one time and said, I'll concede to your argument. I'll concede to your argument that you need a container for gas pressure. But let's talk about how you don't need a container for gas pressure.
Yeah, a few of them.
That checks out.
Go on, Jorge.
Now, most of the time, they already have the answer to the question, you know? That's why they double speak.
Agreed. Especially from anti-flat earthers. They've already got the anti-flat earth rebuttal ready to bagark out, as QE phrases it. Bagark! Refraction! All right, you got that lined up. What is refraction? Can you define it for me? Yeah, watch them run around like headless chickens at that point.
Yeah, it's my refracted to geometry.
Yeah, my straight bent line is refraction.
The refraction in celestial navigation and refraction in real life is temperature difference of the water and the air. Not a bent.
Well, I wonder why they're not ever honest with that and just say, when you're saying refraction, why don't they just say, yeah, it's terrestrial refraction. We're going to take that radius that you just debunked, and we're going to change that to salvage the radius you just debunked. Why don't they just do that?
Meaning the line to the horizon's no longer straight and no longer geometric, and we haven't got a geometric limitation called earth curve blocking boats and buildings. So my fundamentalist globe earth belief that boats fall over the horizon is suddenly shattered because that line is no longer representative of a physical limitation with a straight line to it, called a tangent point, aka earth curve. That's why.
I think I have a better way of saying this.
Excuse me, flat earther. Go ahead, Jeff.
Our knowledge of celestial navigation is now in line with the understanding of heliocentrists' understanding. Anti-flat earthers are opposed to both now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That actually came to the forefront with my family. So my sister, when I was just having a fairly heated discussion with my brother-in-law about celestial navigation, I know I've told this story before, started nodding along with me. Now, she's a globey normie. She's not involved in this. She's my sister. But other than that, blood relation, there's no connection. So for her to be nodding along with me, who she fought with as a kid, rather than her husband, who's arguing with me, was very unusual. I'm like, why are you nodding along? And she was like, well, we did this, didn't we? We went out on the boat. I had the sextant. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course you did. So as a normie globe believer who doesn't want to die at sea, you had to learn and get qualified to use a sextant to find your position out at sea on a flat earth then, Faye. And she went, yeah, I did. I was like, I can't believe this. You're actually on my side for a change. Wonderful. Yeah, because she needed a flat plane to do the navigation that she learned how to do to go out on her boat.
So she actually went out and did this and agrees with you, but the people that don't agree with you are the people sitting here on the internet.
And my brother-in-law at the time, which was very amusing. And she had to tell him to calm down for a change. It's normally the other way around. He's one of the few people I actually argue in real life about this with.
My timing is off. I would have loved to have been in that room watching your face when she said that and watching his face when she said that.
I went white because it was in 2000, maybe 1919. I can't remember how long ago it was she had a boat or a couple of boats. But, you know, it's a long time ago and you just forget. So while I could extend that and lie a little bit and go, oh, yeah, of course I've used a sextant. No, I haven't. That would be a total lie. I've been in the presence of somebody. But that doesn't make me the person who's done it. But it does mean that when I'm in a debate about it with my brother-in-law, having never done it, the person who has is agreeing with me, which is great.
Well, let's put this to rest. You know how many videos there is online that you can watch a guy go through every single step of all the corrections on the instrument itself, all the corrections after you take the elevation angle to get the true altitude. You watch them do it. You see them put their hands on the knob, anyone could see what they're doing, and it all requires a flat baseline. You'd never have to do it.
You move on?
Yeah.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
You're gonna have to beg the question, assume a sphere. But you're gonna need the flat Earth for that.
That's John's line.
He can use it.
Yeah, you're going to need R for that. Any evidence of the radius of the Earth, the R value?
I think we should ask a new housekeeping question that says, any evidence that the anti-flat earthers know what a radius is? Because I haven't seen one yet in Discord chat that knows what a radius is. They're trying to claim it's a curved line on the outside edge of a sphere.
What? They think radius is the curved line on the outside edge. It's the
what? Yeah,
I won't say what it is in case you're trying to lead them somewhere.
Cartoon depicts.
Okay, which chat skanks are they in VC?
No, they're too scared.
Okay, chat skanking that radius
too scared to join the VC.
So let me ask John to chip in here. Are they perhaps, John, talking about the radius and the radial value being the same curve and one straight?
No, I think there's the circle of equal altitude that they're trying to say is the radius of that circle is actually an arc.
That makes a lot more sense. Right, where Brian usually steps in and says, well, the difference in terms of how many miles you'd have putting you off if you had a curved line that was an increased value versus the actual radius over a circle of equal elevation. Now, this is basically Dingleberry Earth, isn't it? We're talking about a flat plane with Dingleberry Earth below. But some idiots assert that no, the radius value on that circle of equal elevation that's depicted with a Dingleberry Earth that's not useful, in fact detrimental to the process, is actually a curved line. Really, it is in relation to the surface. Therefore, curved radius.
Didn't Proto Thad come on the show, and when Brian was going back and forth with Proto, admit that it's the chord line that's straight under that curved surface, and he lost. He just embarrassed himself because that straight line would be a different distance than the curved line above it, the arc.
Right, and you're not travelling through Earth on a chord line now, are you?
Yeah, but it's three circles of equal altitude, so it's 3 flat planes with a Dingleberry underneath.
Must be a Dingleberry underneath all of them, obviously relativity and all.
Yeah, correct. So you have these 3 circles of equal altitude in space, and the Dingleberry underneath.
Yeah, you can't model a single globe Earth beneath 3 areas of equal elevation. They're all equal in elevation. None of them have got curves moving away from their position 8 inches per mile squared. They're all flat. Now, if they all interlink, that's 3 vast areas, circles of equal elevation. That's flat planes. So this simply doesn't work on a sphere. That's the bottom line here.
Poor useless sphere sitting underneath a horizontal plane. Ridiculous.
A sphere doesn't have straight lines.
Why would they be drawing chord lines to represent the surface you're about to travel over anyway? If the Earth was a sphere, shouldn't you be concerned about travelling over a sphere rather than turning that sphere into a flat plane? Or worrying about how the flat plane that you're using and measuring and navigating on is actually a sliced off top section of a sphere, aka a chord line. Why are you doing that? Just navigate on your sphere. What's that? You don't? You navigate on a flat plane? Yeah, we know. It's our proof, see. Isn't that wonderful? You have to concede it when you tell us how flat it has to be for you to measure an angle. It's wonderful. It's also how the celestial sphere model's created, and it's also how your globe model's derived. So everyone's cushy. Everyone must appreciate, if they're here, that the world is derived from angle measurements off a flat plane, regardless of if you think you're on a sphere or not. I mean, that assumption and misapprehension has come from measurements from a plane, whether you like it or not.
And that it doesn't help them that in another argument when they're talking about refraction, well, they're men. Andrew Thomas Young says that he takes all of his refraction calculations from a flat plane. But what flat plane? Aren't we supposed to be on a sphere? What flat plane is he talking about?
When he measured the refraction, presumably with some sort of angles in the measurement.
That's terrible.
It's because as soon as he starts declaring that he's measured atmospheric refraction, it's like, where did you get the sphere-shaped air from? Oh, well, I just assumed the air around me is sphere-shaped. Like, well, air around you is unbonded. What do you mean sphere-shaped? You mean abiding by sphere-shaped air law, not dispersing into vacuums? Yeah, that's not happening, is it? That's not how gas behaves. It just behaves that way in your model that we're not living on. That would be a globe model that's derived from a flat plane, elevation angle measurement, and the celestial sphere model.
Maybe that's part of the considerations he had to take after.
Yeah, geometric considerations, i.e. a line of sight to a geometric horizon that Al-Biruni used to derive R. You'll just consider that you have got a line of sight to it when your line of sight to the horizon you're seeing isn't that line of sight. It's a second horizon, refracted horizon, that leaves you with no line of sight to the geometric horizon that's Earth curve anymore.
Well, John, our panel member, Refracted Curvature, could follow up my question here because I'm going to address it to him. Didn't Andrew Thomas Young just do what you did with your kitchen. He took a flat plane and then said, but the Earth can't be flat, and then made a sphere out of it. And didn't you take measurements from your kitchen angle and say, well, my kitchen can't be flat, and made a sphere out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty simple to do if you confuse the outside edge of your protractor with the shape of your floor.
Yeah, you measure things to light fixtures with a tool that's got a curve around it and say, well, that means that the surface is curved because I'm taking angles, and the way you describe an angle is how it moves through these degrees. Well, that means the ground's curving. Pretty absurd.
And you can actually measure the angles to the stars beneath your feet.
Do all sorts of things so long as you've got a flat plane to get the angle from in the first place.
Any other stars beneath my feet?
No, I don't think that's the case. You know, the heliocentric model has the sphere Earth rotating, pushing the stars that you've got angle measurements from off a flat plane in the model.
Yeah, they have two protractors. You know, they have a protractor on the top and another one on the bottom. They need to have that 360 degrees. They need to have that 60 nautical miles, you know, of depression angle to give them the sphere, if you know what I mean.
Right. Stars below the horizon. The way it's depicted, the way it's modelled, and we do not reify this model before anybody tries to claim we're guilty of it. We're just describing the origin story of the globe. But that model is two different perspective views from very different locations glued on top of one another. But that does not mean, by reification, that the stars move below your feet to an antipodal position on a globe. That's a reification. Now, it's a reification that's much easier to do if you've got a globe as opposed to a flat plane with the celestial sphere wrapped around it.
Well, I was wondering, because they'll introduce orbital mechanics if they can, like when they discuss the sun's motions, right?
Yeah.
Well, what happens to orbital mechanics if you remove the R value from it?
Well, they cease to be relevant because you've only got the arc of the tool to measure the angle off a flat plane to the stars to then predict their position based on their predictable motion, and then, as I just said earlier, glue the south position perspective view underneath the north position perspective view. But that doesn't give you orbits.
Therefore, there's no pictures from a place that doesn't exist.
Correct.
What's an orbit, by the way?
Actually, what they do is, if you are navigating, you have two different maps. You have one for the north and one for the south. Yeah, and they both have two different reference points. The one for the north has the North Celestial as a reference point. The one for the south has the southern as a reference point. So what you're looking is, in practical terms, you know, you go to your shelf, you open, you bring your charts, and you're looking at one. Oh, this is not the one. So you open another one, and you're looking at a different flat plane. Okay, it's a different area of the plane.
Correct.
It's the same plane. At no point someone is looking at the map upside down.
That's correct, because if you move to the outside edge of one of the perspective views as depicted from, say, the North Pole, well, when you move out to the edge, your perspective view changes. And so do the relative positions of the stars above their fixed GPs at a given time. But that angle that you measure is still the same elevation angle off a flat plane measurement, even though you've moved beyond how their model has been put into a celestial sphere. Again, over a flat plane, with north and south glued one above the other. But, like I say, as you traverse it, you're still traversing a flat plane and measuring angles on it. That's how the model's made.
And where they meet, you'll call it a zero line, an equator. What about that?
Now, the equator is just the midpoint of the movement of the celestial bodies we call sun and moon, more over the sun, for the seasons. So the midpoint is the equator. It's just an arbitrary line drawn for where they say the sun moves over at its midpoint.
Yeah, but that's why on the map it doesn't work, isn't it? The equator line on the Mercator projector is further south. It should be in the middle of the map. Is not.
Perhaps that I don't want to suggest that might be the case because I really don't know.
Nathan, I just sent you a slide.
I've put it up. Okay.
Yeah, so you can see here that they've got the equatorial plane, and it's a horizontal measurement from that equatorial plane. That's the sextant is a horizontal, it's an alt-az measurement. Now, of course, they're saying it's happening from the top of Dingleberry, which we've just proven you can't because you can't get an angle from a curved surface. And so now if you extend what Jorge was saying, that zero line, where it's the equator, instead of going below, just go further out on the disk that's larger. And that's what the flat plane is. It's not this thing below. So when you can't see a star,
Just stop a second.
all you got to do...
Just stop a second, Ted.
Okay.
Just so the audience follows along with what you're saying. So where we've got this dotted line along the top and this equator, right? If you move to a position, here's our current position with Z marking our zenith, right? If you move out along the line that's marked Y, beyond the current circle that you've drawn out, you're still standing on the flat plane. And it still works. You're just no longer in the same position. So you draw out a new sphere of perspective with a new angle to the star. But it doesn't mean that suddenly you drop off the edge simply because you've moved further out along this Y line. So I just want to make that clear for the audience before you carry on. Go ahead, Tenth.
Well, no, that's the point I'm making. You just go out rather than down.
Yeah, and you've got to be going out towards the horizon is flat. That's how it's being measured. That's how it's been modelled. That's how the sphere was created that you then think you're standing on. I.e., this is the plane that you're taking the measurement from. Here is your measurement point on that plane that you're standing on. Here is your angle to the star marked U. Here is a flat baseline marked Y. Well, at no point when you take this measurement of the angle to the star marked U, are you standing up here? This is representative of the tool you're holding. That's where the globe lie has taken flat Earth measurements to stars off a flat baseline, in case of dual radii, Polaris, and then said that you are actually standing on the top of the tool, and that's representative of the ground. No, you've measured it off this section. In this depiction, the equatorial plane. That's what it's called.
Yeah, when you, just another thought, maybe imagery that I've had in my mind while studying this and looking at all the different pictorials, slides, etc. So if you hold a compass, it's 360, but you're holding it horizontally, okay? And what they've done here is they have a sphere, and they're saying that the equator is your zero, and the top part is, this sphere is divided into 4 quarters. So you got 4 90s in this sphere, if you follow what I'm saying. So if you take half of the sphere, would be, as John said, a protractor, that's 180. 180 and 180 is 360, except they got that other 180 underneath. So if you think of a compass rather than this, and where the sun sets is at the furthest edge until you move towards it to where you can keep seeing it. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's a disk rather than falling off to a bottom of a sphere.
Right, so if this was your position, looking at you, well, that could be the sun. And from your perspective view, the sun's trajectory will be from here to here, in your perspective view. However, if you move along this plane beyond your perspective view to where it's marked Y, or the arrow marker at the end of Y, the sun will still do the same exact thing. It'll just do it from here. So you'll have a perspective view of the sun's movement like that. It's just exactly the same thing's going to happen. But you're still traversing a flat plane, measuring an angle along it. At no point are you standing on your tool when you reify the bent line you've just measured to get this angle. No, this line's not bent. You're not standing on a sphere measuring this angle from a bent surface. The tool's bent. That's not the surface you're standing on. But that's how the globe was created. Any scientific evidence of gravity? Haven't had that in a while.
What's the phenomenon?
Excellent question. What phenomena? There is no phenomena. It's conjured up in 4D space. The bending of the conceptual medium known as 4D spacetime is the phenomena. I even know what their mathematical claim to be causes. Uneven distribution of mass, in case you were wondering.
They
Isn't
can't
that
get to
something
step
that
one, is what you're saying,
exists?
right?
Can't get to step one of the
Isn't
scientific method. Can't observe a phenomena. Nothing's happening. When are you going to show me bending space-time? You're never going to show it me. When are you going to show me time? You're not going to show me that either. When are you going to show me time, which you can't show me as a fabric bending? You can't. There is no phenomena.
Well, the mainstream even proposes that there is no valid hypotheses for gravity. So
because there's no phenomena.
Wow. So did
It
Newton.
only exists in
Isn't
people's
that funny?
minds, driven from a story that was told to them.
Correct. But how come I have a guy telling me that if the table or the ground wasn't there, certain things would keep going? Like, say, a brick.
Like your keys?
Yeah, like my keys. He was saying it's there because if the table's not there or the ground is not there, that's going to keep falling because it's the center of mass, gravity, the pull.
So what you do is you go underneath the table because you knew he was going to ask, and you pull out your plastic inflatable key filled with helium. And then you go, okay, so I'm going to take this table away, and you watch the helium key go up and go, what happened there then?
Yep, the globe is the phenomenon that they're observing.
Oh yeah, where do we observe that phenomena? You go into
I've never seen a
the
globe.
wardrobe to space.
Right,
I mean,
then they
the sky
propose
booking.
that you see it as ships go over the horizon, et cetera, et cetera. Now that's the phenomena they're explaining with gravity.
Gotcha. With gravity. So I was with you right up until the point you said they're explaining that with gravity.
Right. That's what they need to explain. With that's what they need. They need gravity to explain the phenomena of the globe.
Yeah, they need gravity for the water to bend around the sphere.
It doesn't really explain any.
Full circle.
Just one sec. It doesn't really explain anything that's going to claim a globe. It's gravity's there as a band-aid to solve problems with the globe.
And apparently even the Band-Aid itself has problems because they need to create some other crap called dark matter because they can't explain the first crap, the gravity.
Yeah, even the crappy math pseudo-Ramonian force space-time bending has its issues in maths.
Explain.
So they've got to explain. They've
They
got to
can
come up
explain.
with it.
They explain to us in school, don't they? With a bucket with water, and they spin it around, and they say that this outwards force is actually pulling you inwards.
Yeah, but even the maths for
Tried that trick with me.
Even the maths for that is pseudo-Ramonian force space-time bending in its current incarnation. And I can't remember whose point it was now, but that in and of itself is incorrect. Even their bullshit maths for a phenomena that's non-existent has its issues, and they've had to come up with dark matter.
Yep. So the whole
So
thing's non-existent.
are you saying the progression went from...
Oh, hold on, 10th. Go ahead, Wondek.
I was just saying the whole thing is non-existent. From the gravity, the spinning Santa globe, the fourth dimension, space bending time. It's just a load of balls. Pardon the pun.
It's cool though, isn't it? You got to admit, as a fantasy story, it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it'd be a good movie, like.
Would be. Future tense.
Maybe their fantasy story needs less holes, though, because when their priest is asked, what is gravity? And his response is, we have no idea. Next question.
I don't know.
Isn't this as what it is? We don't know. Like, that doesn't sound
Professor
like somebody that's got a great story.
There is no... Sorry.
That's okay. 10th's still in the wings. Go ahead, Jorge.
I was just saying, Professor Brian Cox says that there is no force of gravity at all.
That's correct. That was verbatim quote from Brian Cox. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, I was just going to say the progression is mass attracts mass. Then no, that's not it. It's the bending of space-time. Well, now that's not it. So how many times are you going to change something that's invisible, no one sees, that they need for a globe that no one sees?
And the worst part is, if you are part of that narrative. Sorry, Jorge. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was me. It was only quick. I'm just saying. I think it's the more people and humanity are waking up to the lies, then that's when the changes pull in. They have to change it then, because we're cottoning onto things, and they come out with some new blurb just to confuse the masses even more. That's what they do.
Yeah, sometimes I think we're helping them in that regard. The more we uncover with the model and the design of how it's disseminated to the masses that we highlight, the more issues we highlight, the more they've got to work with in terms of their solving the issue. As an example, there's a good chance that the last raft of flat earthers from the 70s and 80s, where we've still got some remnants of it, people have still got some billboard clippings, newspaper clippings of billboards that were up at the time. Well, that for all we know, they're the reason we've got terrestrial refraction derivations and Andrew Thomas Young's explanations. That could be the reason why. And further to that, typically there's normally something that comes out. So, for instance, Black Swan, what's the quick parroting going forward into the future globe explanation that they'll find if they dig hard enough as an anti-flat earther, if they become one? Well, they'll find refraction and be safe and content in the cuddly, warm, friendly, geometric breaking refraction that they've been given. So that's good. That's a heliocentric smear of nonsense that's good enough, right? They only have to do good enough. It's only for the general public. So good enough is good enough. And for the elevation angle argument, what have they come up with? Well, nothing. Literally nothing. So at this point, I think, okay, in years gone by, I was left at the end of each argument going, yeah, refraction's not a great argument as a rebuttal, but they still bark it and have done for 2 years. Now we're at the point where we go, well, refraction ruins this, you need a straight line for an angle, blah, blah, blah. What's come back from it? Other than, people like Zanuck saying, well, yeah, we do need a flat plane. And John's point earlier is that it's not an argument anymore, it's a concession when they immediately start with, yeah, we're going to need a flat plane to do this. So if what you say is true, one deck, to make this more concise, where's the heliocentric smear of nonsense for this? Elevation angle measurement from a flat plane, and to create the model that's known as the celestial sphere model, and from there create the globe model. Where's the smear? I'm not seeing it. So if it is a big conspiracy, I want to see the smear. Or if they're keeping control of this needs a smear. I want to see the smear. Do we all know what I mean by smear, by the way? Not some test that women have.
The same side that argues refraction, they're the same side that argues that we've never seen the geometric horizon because we have an atmosphere, right? Well, don't you need the atmosphere for the refraction they're talking about?
No, because their refraction's talking about
expected to see.
Their refraction's based on R, so no, they don't need anything for R-based refraction. It's a mathematical derivation of R.
Yeah, but don't they need the atmosphere for that?
See, but meanwhile, you measure it.
No, their just so story is tied in with atmosphere. The atmosphere is the lens that they think makes it all bend.
That's what I'm saying. But they're saying that it makes it bend, but at the same time, we can't see the geometric horizon unless we don't have this atmosphere.
Yeah, you can. You have a straight line of sight.
It begins. It begins.
See, that's an argument, right?
It's within 5%.
Yeah, there you go, John. John can draw close to this. Yes, that's correct. That is an argument that you could leave an audience member in confusion with, which is good enough. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Yeah, that's good enough for their position. They have the dominant worldview. So, yeah, that's good enough for them.
Exactly. Now put the elevation angle argument to Baldwin and see if we can do the same thing.
It's more like Akumu win, but okay.
You require a flat baseline.
So, please don't do that.
Oh, come on, man.
That was good.
Don't start out with an input. Like, I don't know. You can do it. You can do it. Don't ask me how.
The Zanuck response is, yeah, we're going to need a flat plane. But then we go forward and use that flat plane to assume we're on a sphere.
Yeah.
Or you can use a space plumb bob.
You say space plumb bob?
Yeah, that was also from
Yeah,
Xanax.
space plumb bob just points to the nearest sphere.
We must do another episode on sextants in space. Yes, Nathan, really excited about Space Narnia sextants. Woo! Oh, I'm glad you're as keen as me.
Space sextant.
Oh, I thought you said sex is in space.
No, Neil. Jeez.
No, it's on the
How
clouds.
do you establish a level? How do you establish a level line in space?
I don't know. I'm still getting over the fact we can't get back to Narnia. They destroyed that wardrobe years ago, and we just can't get the technology back.
Painful process, man.
It's a very painful process.
Well, as soon as they figure out the time dilation of Narnia's wardrobe and people can safely traverse the wardrobe again, then people can go through that wardrobe.
No, but they could fake the moon landing again. It's too painful to basically do it the same way they did it the first time, right? They can't get past the Van Allen radiation belt, even back then.
Yeah, that wasn't a problem back then. Van Allen hadn't even postulated that back then.
Well, as long as you
We're still
don't
going
know
to
that
lower
you're
Earth
going
orbit, though.
through
So we're going to carry on doing this. We're going to all beg the question of space and then talk about things like Van Allen radiation belts that have come into existence when Van Allen arbitrarily decided that space had them.
Yeah, what's the distance between the Van Allen radiation belt and the stratosphere?
Listen to Chocolate. Listen to Chocolate. He just gave that. It's not a good answer, but it's good enough. As long as we don't know that we were traveling with it, through it, we didn't get affected by it.
Right.
Exactly. My house out
Hold on,
with
Arvin.
this is astronaut.
What do you mean
Alan
with the
Bean.
Stratos what?
Hold on. Chocolate's being rumpus by Jorge. Chocolate's giving out what was the response when it was put to an astronaut. Am I wrong?
Nope. Astronaut Alan Bean had no idea, supposedly, that he went through the Van Allen belts until he was told by the person interviewing him, Bart Sabrell, that he did. And then once he was told that he actually had to have gone through the Van Allen belts, then he remembered about all the consequences of that. So, yeah, there you go. That's your man, Alan Bean.
Perfect. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Yeah, the department of NASA, the artist department, they got a Grammy.
They got what?
It's for a Grammy for their depictions of other worlds, imaginary worlds. So one of them was an astrophysicist.
No way! Oh, shout out to Dilly Gill. Go and watch Dilly Gill. So, Dilly Gill has often described NASA as being, and I quote, at the cutting edge of cinematography. You are so right, Dilly Gill. You are so right. They're getting awards for their cinematography. Yeah, that figures.
Oh, yeah.
Awards for cinematography, but they have
NASA?
to tape over. They have to lose tapes of telemetry data and shit. That's cute.
Wait,
yeah, NASA's
is NASA getting these awards
artist
or Hollywood?
department.
NASA are getting awards for cinematography.
Yeah, but isn't the Grammys a music awards? It must be another award.
Oh, I'm getting my awards wrong.
More like an Emmy.
Yeah,
It could be an Emmy, yeah, but they got an award, yeah. It was on the news. They didn't hide
So the
it.
entire organization got the reward.
Well, it could be Grammys because records spin.
They explain how they come to these conclusions about what the planets look like, based on the observations by the telescopes and the depictions of it. It comes all from these people's minds. So they got an award for it.
Right. It's because it's all fabricated. if you're watching this, Google search Pillars of Creation and have a look what comes up. And what it looks like is the most amazing space world you've ever seen. Till you find out that it's just been coloured in various different colours, because according to them it's in a spectra we can't see, and that's basically what it might look like if you could see in that spectra. Alright. So this is just complete fabricated nonsense then. This is not what we see. Yeah, just what an artist's come up with. Their interpretation of it. Alright. So it's not come from a telescope then? Yeah. It's come from Hubble. It's come from Hubble. Yeah, definitely. And then been coloured in by a guy whose interpretation of what you might see if you could see what it didn't see in your light spectrum that you can't see. That's why it looks the way it does, because it's come from Hubble. Space, man. Check it out. Pillars of Creation.
You know what's interesting, Nathan? You know, no, they never ever show you the cycle. Because the sky is a cycle. Like this time, exact time, this time next year, the same exact stars will be in the same exact position. But they never show you that. They're always showing you some new convoluted nonsense where there is no cycle, there is no pattern. It's always anti-pattern, anti-cycle. When reality is, we walk outside, we look up, we see a pattern, we see a cycle. But they never ever show you that. Every time they're showing you something, it's not the stars you can see. It's always some galaxy far, far away that looks like a big mess, a jumbled mess.
Okay, right. Close your ears if you're a crazy hippie. Who is looking at the logic of the stars in terms of their predictable movements and patterns?
Well, astronomers, I suppose.
Astrologers.
The elite.
Well, and astrologers, yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying in terms of the general public's perception of what are the people, what type of person talks about the repeatable patterns that the sky presents us with. What kind of person talks about that?
Astrologers.
And are they deemed as, obviously normally, reasonable people that everyone would trust and understand? And is
Flat earthers, mainly.
No, you're missing my point.
They're deemed as wacky, out there, hippie type, witches, whatever, that kind of thing.
People who just look at the patterns in the stars that are very, very repeatable. The same patterns that we're talking about when we predict where they're going to be so you can navigate with them. Right?
Yeah.
But they're wacky, out there, crazy people. The people who come up with crazy names and have got mathematics that doesn't work for gravity and create dark matter to make right of the maths that's wrong for a non-existent phenomena. Those people, the ones pointing at black holes, something that you can't see, and colouring in these pictures, they're the ones that you should pay attention to. The people who talk about just how the stars move, but for some reason have been led on a path, like so many flat earthers when they got to the Feast of Nonsense, but that's a different story, led on a path to disseminate nonsense about those patterns that are very predictable, so that the general public can see them as idiots that need ridiculing, when all they're really doing is giving their interpretation after the fact, after studying the patterns that are very predictable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Those same crazy people that tell you some of those stars are actually gone, they're destroyed, but the light is still on their way to your eyes. That was my favorite one as a kid. Besides we're all, people are sticking antipodal underneath my feet. The stars, some of them aren't actually there, but the light's still on its way to you. Like, okay, thanks.
What I find amazing is that when it comes to this, they're going back, actually, because they're back to the 13th signs in astrology.
That's because there's 13 cycles, right? In terms of the moon, you've got 13 months.
Yeah. From what Chocolate was saying there, that's like DHL sending you a package and it arrives after DHL has imploded.
Right. Quick shout out to Retro Bill. It says action-packed week here on Flat Earth Debate. Indeed, subscribe today. But with that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who splashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the thanks button after the fact, smash the PayPal link, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Shout out to Sensual Goat, who says, FYI, Brian, they are selling orthographic glasses at the anti-flat earth market. 7 for 6, they'll change your perspective on things. Thank you very much indeed, Sensual Goat, for the super chat.